Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lisa Norell. It is actually January 22nd. Welcome to the Mindful Marketer live stream. We are simulcasting across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And for the next 35 minutes or so, I am looking forward to spending some time with you to help you COVID-proof your career, and how to do that by building and cultivating professional communities. So remember, we love to always know where you're from. Put your comments in the live stream chat, and I'll make sure that we cover as many of your questions as we possibly can. Today, I'm also joined by my producer, Stefan Kaplan. So we'll be checking in with him later on as well. Whew, what a week. What a week. I've been writing about it. I've been speaking about it. I've been producing videos about the inauguration. It's a whole new era here in the United States. And in fact, I was very inspired this week when the Wall Street Journal came out and said, Biden calls for unity. Now, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, and we're not going to be talking about politics today. However, it informs how I view the world and how I view the work I do every day. And one of the things that I know for sure is that unity is an operative word right now in the zeitgeist. So how can we learn from the concept of unity and apply it to your career? So I'm always listening as a mindful marketer around where can, in our client community, in our peer communities, can we create more alignment and create that unity? And how can unity help us focus better, bring together people around common goals, and build ultimately stronger companies? So that's what we're talking about today. And we're going to have to do some things differently this year, because last year's data was very, shall I say, sad. Some of the people I spoke with in our CMO peer community told me that they have seen employee engagement drop by as much as 50 or 60% over the previous year. And absenteeism with some companies I talked to has increased to 30%. Can you imagine? 30% absenteeism. So lots of CMOs are now being asked to add more things to their plate. Namely, they are being asked to take ownership of employee engagement programs to highlight some of the successes and the accomplishments of their own people. So they're being asked to apply marketing strategies and creativity to this problem. So I'm really hoping today that I'll give you a set of fresh ideas on how to overcome this lack of engagement, lack of enthusiasm that can not only kill productivity, but it kills profits. So again, I'm here to remind you, we're going to be taking your live questions. Make sure you tell us where you're from and perhaps what you're seeing in terms of absenteeism or lack of productivity in your own organization. So let's talk for a minute about root cause. What might be causing this lack of engagement or higher, shall I say, lack of productivity and higher absenteeism? Well, what I have found in speaking with several hundred executives and CMOs since COVID began is that isolation is high on the list. Isolation is not fun, and it's that sense that you feel alone or separated from others, or worse yet, that you're the only person experiencing some of that feeling of loneliness. So what I want to cover today is to find out why I truly believe that traditional networking is dead. Why I think career isolation is something we have to work more diligently towards now that we work behind a screen and we can't sip wine with a friend at a restaurant or a business colleague. I'm going to give you what I consider four things that can stop you from building a solid community in today's virtual world. And then I'm going to give you my favorite 7 questions to help you actually seek out a powerful peer community for yourself. So let's talk a little bit about that. And also I have some wonderful examples of organizations or chief marketing officers in our community who have really achieved great things by adding a little rocket fuel to their communities by joining a peer community. So, by the way, some of the things I'm going to share today are a little bit, shall I say, provocative. So, as Joan Baez once said, take what you need from today's session and leave the rest. So, let's talk for a minute about this common topic known as isolation. For years now, scientists have been warning us that always being connected is a bit of a conundrum. And now that we walk around, and you all know it, our phones are our handheld computers. By the way, you can see a picture of one of my recently deceased cats on my phone. But constantly carrying around our computers in our hands does have addictive qualities. And isolation's deleterious effects have gotten much worse over COVID and during COVID. Hiding behind a screen without real human contact has had some pretty negative effects on loneliness. It's also been blamed for creating more anxiety, depression, and even dementia. So last September, the Journal of the American Medical Association and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that more than 2 out of 5 Americans are now struggling with mental health or behavioral health issues during the pandemic. And hey, I know that as business leaders, you never signed up to be mental health experts, yet you need to know the facts because there are people on your teams who are walking around and could be experiencing these unfortunate signs. 31% of the people that they surveyed reported symptoms of anxiety or of a depressive disorder. So I'm not trying to upset you. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer on a Friday afternoon, but I really just want you to be aware that this is a real thing. And anything you can do either for yourself or for people on your teams to conquer isolation and to create more of a sense of community could really make a huge difference in someone's life, let alone the profitability of your organization. So I really want you to think seriously about that. Also want to remind everybody we are taking your questions and your comments. So tell us where you're from and what you're experiencing. So many of you may not know what my mission is at Energized Growth. I will tell you that my mission is pretty simple. My mission is to help marketers create better lives and build stronger companies. So I really, really care about this topic and helping you find or even design your own professional community while you work from home and beyond. So there are a few things I want to suggest if you're saying, I really want to join some kind of professional community, but how do I make sure I can do it soon? Are there any common mistakes that I've seen? Well, I have spent the last 9.5 years actually building professional peer communities. And there are actually 4 issues, or shall I say roadblocks, that I see that people hit when they think they're building a professional community, or they're thinking that a professional community is right for them. It may not be the right group for you. So let me share with you some things, some common mistakes that I've seen out there. The first one is when people think community can be built by doing text messaging and connecting with people informally through a chat room. So first of all, chat rooms are not professional peer communities. And they actually open the door to misunderstandings and even what I call malevolence. Just thinking, well, I can cut corners. I can just communicate with people on text message or through Messenger is actually a pretty bad idea. I think those forums are really great for just sharing data, confirming appointments, sharing some joke. I mean, I think that's great. But to actually I'm talking about human to human connections where people get real, where people share some of their successes, but also some of their learning moments, which are affectionately known as failures. People that do that exclusively in a chat room are not necessarily reaping the full benefits of what I mean by a private peer community. So you don't want to tell people you care about that, I don't have time for a real conversation. I just want to send you text messages. So that's number one, is just thinking that communication shortcuts will replace peer communities. They don't. Number two, letting the web cradle the cowardly. Letting the web cradle the cowardly. I know that's a tongue twister. I have seen people disguise their comments, and they post things anonymously. And, they say that no one knows you're a cat on the internet. Well, in some cases, cats do act with more integrity. So what we want to avoid, again, is thinking that trolling chat rooms and posting comments or feelings or emotions is a peer group, because it's not, because it does unfortunately attract trolls. Number three, when you choose social over substance. So choosing social groups and chat rooms over a substantive peer group. It's really not unusual nowadays. You can find meetup groups and social groups and Facebook groups for every hobby known to man and woman, right? But I'm talking here about small cultivated communities who come together. So there are a lot of groups out there with a lot of sizzle and no steak. What I'm talking about are really meaty groups that get into the heart of your business challenges, that are willing to share real issues. So be careful when you think that you're joining a peer group, when in reality, you just might be joining a social group. So just be wary of that. And I'm going to be sharing with you in a little while here 7 questions you can use to make sure you don't confuse a social group with a peer group. But for now, I see we've got a question coming in from Michael in Atlanta. Michael asks, is networking possible purely online? Great question, Michael. I do get that often. I do believe networking is possible online. And sadly, a lot of us are stuck with that right now. What I'm wanting you to do here is understand the distinction between networking and peer communities. Because peer communities have a purpose, they have a schedule, they are carefully cultivated and selected and selective. So networking can be, in general, it's a free-for-all. So one minute you could be sitting next to an intern and you might be a CEO or a CMO. You have people of all ages, backgrounds, etc. Peer groups, however, cement people around this common purpose and do cultivate diverse thought and honesty. Now, also, Michael, the distinction between networking and peer groups is really good peer groups actually ask you to sign a non-disclosure, because some people might be sharing business plans, budgets, information about their boss that they'd rather not share in a public forum because they're facing a challenge. So there is definitely a difference between, again, hanging out in a community versus really diving in to a peer community. So I hope that was helpful, Michael. And the other thing I want to tell you is not everybody really fits a peer community. I'll never forget the time when I was just starting my peer communities 9 years ago. And somebody here in the DC area said, oh, you need to talk to this guy. He is a superstar in the tech field, and he would really be a great member. So I was running a complimentary private executive breakfast to bring together people and ask them if they'd be interested in joining a peer group with me. So I made a phone call to this person who lived in Maryland. And I said, we're having a complimentary breakfast. It's limited to 12 people. And I'd really love for you to be there. Ultimately, we're building a peer community in the Washington metro area. We can see later if you're interested in joining. He got very quiet on the phone and he said, oh, I don't think I can come to that meeting. And I said, oh, I understand. Do you have a schedule conflict? He said, oh, no, I never go to private events with my peers unless I'm the guest speaker. So he did me a tremendous favor because I realized that, we don't allow prima donnas in our peer community. They have to come in with an open heart and a generous spirit. And that did not model open heart and generous spirit. So that's definitely a lesson learned. And boy, we saved both of us a lot of time and energy. So yes, great, Michael. I'm so glad that was a helpful answer for you. One other quick thing I'll mention is to not confuse friendly professional communities with high functioning professional communities. There is a very big difference. Let me give you an example. Now, this is actually a painful example, and it's an example nonetheless. So I will share with you what happened several years ago when we had a CMO group coming together. One of the CMOs was growing their marketing team. And they came to me and they said, oh, we're hiring like crazy. We really need some people. So they reached out to a former employee that they knew from their last job or 2 jobs prior. And I get a call from another member who said, we need to talk. And I thought, okay. So she got on the phone with me and she said, this other member is recruiting and poaching my employee. And I said, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I said, well, let me get to the bottom of this. So the person who was hiring another employee said to me, look, this is a new member. I didn't know that this person even worked for her. I am really sorry. And I'm happy to talk with her and apologize and figure this out. And sadly, the woman said, absolutely not. I am not willing to work this out with the other member. And she actually went dark and quit the group. Now, that's an example where a high functioning organization of any size, whether it's 10 people or it's 10,000 people, you have to have leaders who are willing to come together one-on-one and say, all right, we got a problem here. How do we want to solve it? And so it was really sad for me because, many of you have probably heard of the model, the 5 levels of group dynamics that were coined by Bruce Tuckman many decades ago. And the 5 levels are forming, norming, storming, performing, and adjourning. And this was an example of a leader who was not willing to get through the forming phase. She was only willing to stay there and not get through that norming and storming phase where conflict and disagreement is just part of the equation of building a really high functioning team. So I was very disappointed that didn't work out. Oh, we've got a question from Alex. Alex in DC, when we consider Zoom fatigue and managing our mental state, balancing our leadership requirements with video calls and an inability to meet in person, how do we begin to fold in peer group meetings? Is there an ideal frequency for fostering a good community? Alex, welcome to the stream today. It's really great to see you. And the answer is, welcome to the land of experimentation. When COVID hit, Alex, what we did is we brought our groups together on Zoom once a month. And we tested it out. We tested 1 hour sessions and we tested 90-minute sessions. And we found that an hour was pretty much the max. Oh yes, Michael, Zoom fatigue is definitely a real thing. We found that there were several tips to running effective Zoom meetings. And by the way, for those of you interested in finding out some of the lessons that I've learned, make sure you send me an email to lisa@lisanorell.com, and I'll make sure you get my checklist, the COVID resources. And so anyway, Alex, we found that like the first 6 or 7 months of the pandemic, we had these monthly gatherings. And then it became kind of normalized. And the members came back to me and they said, you know, Lisa, once a month isn't necessary. Can we throttle it back? So we surveyed our members. And now what we're finding is about every 7 weeks, we come together. But the power of peer groups also happens between the meetings. So when I hear that my members are out there taking a socially distanced hike together, or they're meeting outside for a cup of coffee, or they're hopping on Zoom happy hours and just hanging out with each other, I mean, it warms my heart. And that does happen in a well-functioning peer group. So Alex, I hope that answers your question today. Oh, we've got another question from Mark in Atlanta. Hey, Mark. I found having the audience participate in video networking helps, especially if they all have something in common and there are new people. Mark, absolutely. And you're helping me move to the 7 questions because there is a freshness of ideas and learning that happens in these peer communities when you bring in and vet new people from time to time. So vetting is a very, very important part of the community. So let me give you the 7 questions to help you vet your communities. And in between, I'll take some more questions. I'm getting a whole bunch of comments and questions here, so keep them coming, everybody. The first question I want you to consider when you're asked to join a community or when you're creating your own community, which we have done numerous times here. First, tell me what the group's primary goal is. So what you want to find out here is what's their purpose? Is there a purpose or is it just kind of some random hodgepodge group of nice people coming together? I really believe a group needs to have a raison d'être. And we have in our marketing growth leaders community of CMOs, we have a group purpose and we read it before every meeting. We also read our core values. So I'm a huge believer in that, as opposed to, oh, we're going to get together and just talk about social media. You know, that group purpose is not necessarily the way to galvanize an organization. So first question, what's the purpose trifecta is something I've created just to let people understand why purpose is so important. You have to, first of all, get the group involved to help you design what your purpose is. This is not something that the group leader randomly writes up and throws it like spaghetti on the wall. Then defining that purpose so everyone really gets behind it, and then deploying it in everything you do and making it ritualistic can be really, really energizing. And here you can see that if you design and define your purpose, but you don't deploy your purpose, in other words, it's not part of your blood in the group, then all it is a flavor of the month. If you define your purpose and deploy it, but nobody was really involved in the purpose design, then it's a fragmented group. People will splinter. And then finally, if you design it and you deploy it, but people don't really know how to consistently explain it to others and help you recruit new members, then your group will be flailing. So anyway, that's question number one. If you want this trifecta, again, send me an email. I'll be happy to send it. I mean, I'm trying to pack in what took me 9 years to learn in a 40-minute session. So I know I'm going quickly. Let's hop to question 2. How often do you introduce new members? Mark from Atlanta, thank you for mentioning that. You're looking for a group where the group is continuously staying open to recruiting and inviting new members to apply. Number 3, what is the average tenure of members? Number 3, this is important because what I have discovered in building and cultivating community is that the real juice, the real connectedness, it's not going to start in the first month. It takes 1 year, 2 years, maybe even 3, where you start to see people remove their armor and be willing to be vulnerable. Question number 4. Oh, before we get to question 4, we still got some more questions. Mark is talking here about designing these meetings, and he talks about doing short weekly shows. That's great, Mark. 15 to 20 minute fireside chats. I love that format, Mark. And this, I'm curious too, if you're talking here about networking groups or you're carefully selecting people for these groups and these these fireside chats, because there's a place for networking and there's a place for peer groups. So let's jump to the next question from Drew in DC. Can you talk about being more resilient as leaders and how peer communities can help? Oh my gosh, this one could take a while, Drew. All of the members of our group this past year have really modeled resilience. You know, the ability to pause, reflect on what you're learning, and readjust, and do it with a sense of positivity. Now, this doesn't mean they're Pollyannas. This doesn't mean that they sugarcoat the horrific experiences we've all gone through and the COVID deaths, the political banter, the change in government. I mean, it's been so much. And it's that ability to, as Winston Churchill once said, to keep buggering on. So yeah, I think peer communities are an excellent place where you can let your guard down and say, this really sucks. What are you doing? What is this member doing to deal with it? And being able to share ideas around that. Oh yes, Alex, varying activities would really help, especially when Zoom fatigue becomes so commonplace. You got that right. Yes, Mark, thank you. Yes, customer experience audiences. That's great. Thank you. So let's hop to the next question. I thank you all for some incredible participation and ideas today. What's our next question? Oh yes, walk me through a recent conflict that occurred within the group and how was it addressed? This is not the fun part of my work, I will tell you. But when people have the fortitude and, as Drew mentioned, the resilience to say, I'm having an issue with this other person in the group, I'm going to privately reach out to them and we're going to have a conscious, compassionate, direct conversation about the conflict. And we're going to let the group leader know that we had an issue and we resolved it. That's the sign of a really good leader. And we just have to anticipate, with all the stressors we're all feeling, we're going to have some disagreements. And we can do it. We can deal with it in a civilized way. Oh, another question, gamification with online meetings. Well, Mark, I don't have a lot of experience with gamification. This year we've been doing happy hours. We have a comedian joining us for one of our upcoming peer group meetings for our happy hour evenings. I'm all for experimentation. So Mark, if you hear of any gamification programs that work, please share them with us. Whiteboarding and visualization skills. Break up that Hollywood squares. Absolutely. I know, I agree. Just, the Hollywood squares. What can I say? I like to compare Zoom more to Laugh-In. Do you remember the beginning? Some of you are way too young for this, but Laugh-In had people lit in these boxes and they would start the show. And I'll never forget Goldie Hawn's effervescent smile. But anyway, I digress. Number 5, who facilitates the meetings? A really good peer group will be led by a seasoned facilitator. I don't believe in these groups where people say, I don't know, who wants to facilitate the meeting today? And I definitely do not believe in peer groups that are led by volunteers. Volunteers get new job offerings, they get busy, they have conflicts with their schedule. It's too random. If you're a purpose-led peer community, you need a dedicated facilitator. Stop, full stop. Let's move to the next question. All right, trivia game. All right, Mark, send us your trivia game ideas. Even bad sketching, right? Stefan, how consistent is attendance? Yeah. Please look for a peer group where people are really committed to attending. I also turn people down in our peer groups who say, well, maybe this just isn't a priority. I don't know if I can attend. I'm traveling 3 weeks a month. I can't make it to the meetings. It's, peer groups aren't right for everybody, and that's okay. So if people can't attend on a regular basis and show up because people expect them and they're excited to see them, then again, it just may not be a good match. Maybe just going to a random, a networking group when you can make it is perfectly fine. It just won't get you the results you're hoping for. Question 7, how do informal connections and bonds happen between the meetings? So in summary, gamification, trivia night, happy hours, Zoom happy hours, anything you can do. Take a walk with some people who are in your local area. Find ways to see people one-on-one, and I promise you it will really help. So you've heard my 7 questions. It took me 9 years to put those questions together. I don't want to, speaking of trivia, I would not like to trivialize what's involved with a peer community. It takes some patience to build it. It could take you a few months. It might even take you a year, but the rewards and the results are so incredible. I want to share with you just a few of the results. And I know we've got some people here in the live stream who are part of the marketing growth leaders community that I started 9 years ago. But yes, Stefan, show them a nice image of some of the people that are in our community. Back in 2018, we had our annual CMOs Leading Innovation Conference, and here we are posing in front of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground known as the Atlanta United Football Club, and we came together from across the country. So this is why I do the work I do. There are also some great examples, though, of peer communities and what results people have experienced. And here are just a few that I love to share with you because I'm so proud of our members. The first one being one technology company CMO in the Washington area was just appointed to his board of directors, and there's so much excitement coming there. We have a first-time CMO in our group who worked with me and ended up creating the company's first strategic growth plan. And for the last 12 months, they have experienced over 30% top line growth using the plan as their roadmap. We have 2 of our members this year who were promoted to COO. One was promoted to EVP of growth. And I just found out one of our members, former head of worldwide marketing at Hilton, was just accepted a president job. So we love helping them get to that next rung in their careers. We also helped a third of our CMOs prepare themselves to take on a broader responsibility of becoming head of customer experience in their own organizations. So again, this is just an example of what we're experiencing in peer groups, when people really invest the energy with a small group of seasoned team members and seasoned peers to not only improve their careers, but improve their businesses. So this is the work I love to do. So again, 9 years of energy I've put into this. I tried my best to share with you in our 35 minutes together today what I've learned so that you have a sense of what not to do and some questions you can ask people before you join a group and start to commit your time and energy. I've put together a 1-hour course on this that you're also welcome to download. I love this course. I know for a fact I listen to about 6 to 8 hours a week of audio courses and podcasts. So while you're working out or cooking or hiking, you can listen to my latest knowable course, Build Your Professional Community. And if you need to download that, you can also take one of the courses. One of the modules is free. You can go to knowable.fyi. And also on the next slide, you can go to a link and start the course right away. And the course is also a labor of love. And I hope that it gives you some more of the foundation and the tips that you need to find your great community or build your own community. And yes, Stefan, that's the one. You can go to that link and you will find the course on the Knowable app. And I hope you'll consider taking the course and letting me know what community you end up joining or a community that you're hoping to create for yourself and your own professional success. Oh my gosh, folks, it's time to wrap this up already. I don't know how this happens. How does 35 minutes go so quickly? We had so much amazing participation today. I had such a great time with you. I can't wait to see you in February. Guess what? We're going to have our next session on February 5th at 1:30 p.m. East Coast time. We're going to be talking about another fun topic, which is radical complexity, the hidden cost in business. Michael Taylor will be joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, to talk about a framework. He's going to give away a framework that he uses, that he has used to help over 150 organizations dramatically increase top-line revenue, win rates, brand leadership, and confidence. So with that, again, February 5th, I am here the first 3 Fridays of every month, and I would love to see you back here joining us. And so with that, I want to remind you that I'm Lisa Norell. Be safe, be mindful, and be connected.